Congratulations to all of you in celebrating this beautiful Earth Day. I'm going to have a couple of people come up to explain the translation services that we are offering today. So Hui and Melissa, would you mind coming up and explaining how people can receive translation services?
See if I can reach it. 大家好，我们今天呢有那个国语和广东话的口译同传，然后呢大家可以看到在那个绿色和黄色的桌子那边呢有一些同传的翻译器，如果您需要的话，请去领一个。然后呢，要听普通话的话，请用第一频道；要听那个广东话的话，请用第二频道。然后呢，那边有市政府的工作人员会帮助你把这个翻译器調好。謝謝。
大家好，歡迎大家嚟到今日世界地球日嘅慶典。我哋今日嘅慶典節目呢，將會有國語同埋廣東話嘅同聲翻譯提供。如果大家係需要翻譯嘅話，請到左手邊我左手邊嘅桌子，咁我哋呢係會有啲翻譯器，我哋會有專人去幫你安裝。好多謝大家今日歡迎嚟到我哋呢個慶典活動，多謝。
Ladies and gentlemen, how about a nice round of applause for Hui and Melissa? And I got to give a special shout out from Melissa from Councillor Flynn's office, who's been a driving force for change here in this park. We're very, very grateful to all of her efforts. My name's Chris Cook, and I have the great honor and pleasure of being the executive director of the Rose Kennedy Greenway, which is this amazing experiment in America, where we actually had a highway that separated entire neighborhoods from its waterfront, and more importantly, separated people from that waterfront and separated neighborhoods from each other. And now, because a lot of hard work of a whole bunch of people, we're able to knit this into this beautiful system of parks. There's no better place to be celebrating Earth Day than here at the Rose Kennedy Greenway. This is what's possible when a lot of people move towards collective action. And I want to thank all the members of the staff of the Rose Kennedy Greenway. I especially want to thank our leadership. Doug Husted is here, who's our board chair. Thank you very much, Doug. And now it gives me great honor to introduce somebody who really understands the importance of collective action around Earth Day. You know, whether it was working at City Hall or whether as a city councilor or now as mayor, there's someone who has always put the environment and our relation to it at the forefront of her policy agendas. She works tirelessly on all of her green initiatives, and she understands that the investments that we're making today are going to pay dividends for future generations down the road. We are completely honored here at the Greenway to be celebrating Earth Day with, ladies and gentlemen, the Mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you to everyone for being here. Happy Earth Day. I am incredibly honored to be standing here with community leaders and with change makers in a space dedicated to the legacy that we carry forward with so many who have been part of shaping that legacy. Hi, Vivian. This is a moment of great urgency for the city of Boston, and we feel that every single day. We're standing in a community that really has shaped the history of the city and the history of this country. One of the most historic Chinatowns anywhere in the country, and one that is a residential community in distinction with many of the Chinatowns across the country. This is a home for people. It's a home for our young people who go to school here, who play in the parks, who enjoy the spaces. This is a home for our elders who have dedicated their entire lives to sacrificing and making sure that this community would thrive. And this is a home for the many families, visitors, employees, workers who are here every day as well. But what we know about this community also is that it is one that is confronted with great challenges. Housing prices that are rising faster than anyone can follow. Air quality issues that reflect the highways ringed all around, and a census tract that is the most polluted anywhere in the state. This is a community that represents the great promise and potential of our city over centuries here in Boston. And it's also one that represents the great potential and promise for what happens when we take that collective action that Chris has referenced. When we choose to make our public spaces beautiful, welcoming, healthy, and vibrant for all. So on this Earth Day, I want to mention a couple of numbers that reflect the urgency we're discussing. In the last decade alone, Boston suffered more hot days and nights than any decade in the last 50 years. We feel every summer that our weather patterns are changing and that climate change is here right now. In fact, Suffolk County and the Boston area has experienced some of the greatest temperature increases on average compared to places around the world. And that is a function of our weather systems and the relationship with the temperatures and the oceans. And that means that this cycle will only grow and continue. And we have tremendous urgency to mitigate that. Heat threatens the health and well-being of our residents, of our infrastructure, and our environmental justice communities, like right here in Chinatown, are especially vulnerable. In fact, the most common cause of weather-related fatalities in the country is extreme heat. It's more than tornadoes, hurricanes, flooding, and cold weather combined. Being ready for hotter summers means centering public health and climate justice. And I'm so grateful to our chief, Mariama White-Hammond, her entire team, our partners on the city council, and across all of the institutions like the Greenway and so many community groups here in Chinatown for making sure that we could keep our residents at the center of planning for the changes that face us. That's why today we're releasing a new document and roadmap called Heat Resilience Solutions for Boston. This is a plan to prepare Boston for hotter summers and more incidents of intense heat. It prioritizes 5 environmental justice communities: Chinatown, Dorchester, East Boston, Mattapan, and Roxbury, all of which are hotspots for extreme heat in Boston. We're also launching the Extreme Temperatures Response Task Force to support implementation of this plan and coordinate across departments and levels of government to address chronic high temperatures. Today, we're also taking immediate action to plan even for this upcoming spring and summer season. We'll be distributing 30 pop-up cooling kits with a hose, misters, and tents to community organizations hosting public events throughout the summer. We'll be supporting a Cool Roof grant program to ensure property owners understand the benefits of cool roofs and to facilitate the installation. And our incredible team will also be hosting a community-wide design challenge for a cool bus stop this fall. The most effective design will inform new bus shelters along the Silver Line 4 and Silver Line 5 routes. Fighting climate change requires action across all sectors, across all levels of government. Today's plan and this task force are our latest steps forward, but they're certainly not the last, as we will continue to do everything possible to empower our communities, to protect our residents, and to continue collaborating towards a citywide Green New Deal and thriving green economy. Feliz Día de la Tierra en Boston. Gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. Estoy muy contenta de que la primavera esté aquí y el verano está a la vuelta. Pero debido a los efectos del cambio climático, este tiempo también significa calor extremo. Solo en la última década, Boston ha sufrido más días y noches de calor que cualquier otra década de los últimos 50 años. Este calor amenaza la salud y el bienestar de nuestros residentes. La causa más común de muerte relacionada con el clima en el país es el calor extremo, más que los tornados, los huracanes, las inundaciones y el frío juntos. Estar preparados para verano más calurosos significa centrarse en la salud pública y la justicia climática. Por eso estamos lanzando las soluciones de resiliencia a calor para Boston. Este plan va a preparar a Boston para veranos más calurosos y más incidentes de calor intenso. También estamos lanzando el grupo operativo de respuesta a las temperaturas extremas para apoyar la implementación del plan y coordinar a todos los departamentos y niveles de gobierno. Estamos tomando medidas para mitigar los efectos inmediatos del calor extremo con la distribución de 30 kits de refrigeración emergentes a las organizaciones comunitarias que celebren eventos públicos durante el verano. Estamos apoyando un programa de subvenciones de tecos fríos con el fin de garantizar que los propietarios comprendan las ventajas de los tecos fríos y facilitar su instalación. La lucha contra el cambio climático requiere medidas a todos los niveles y en todos los sectores. Seguiremos luchando contra el cambio climático, seguiremos protegiendo a nuestros residentes, seguiremos trabajando juntos para lograr un nuevo acuerdo ecológico en toda la ciudad y una economía verde. Gracias. Okay, thank you so much everyone for being here with us. 非常荣幸能够代表大家，然后现在可以欢迎 Chris Cook back.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for the mayor who is the face of climate action in the United States of America. We're very, very honored to partner with you. And one of those ways that we're partnering is right here in this park, in this neighborhood. This is one of the hottest neighborhoods in Boston. This is also one of the largest open spaces in Chinatown. So it's not acceptable that these wonderful kids have to play in increasingly hot conditions. So partnering with the Environment Department, we've taken immediate actions to support the heat resiliency plan. For instance, these misters have been installed behind us that'll help cool kids during the summer as they play. And in addition, with the Environment Department, we've actually installed this water bubbler here. So there's clean access to the best tasting water in the country, Boston Water and Sewer Commission's water. So we're just so honored that we're already taking immediate steps to not only prepare for climate mitigation, but also climate adaptation. Again, it's about collective action. So I just have to give a few quick thank yous to all of the Greenway team who helped out with this. On the maintenance team, Tom Ball, Bobby Davis, Bruce Kerstairs, Leonard Krishova, CJ Osborne, Rex Zen, Bob Stigberg, Horticulture, Dara Cole, Victoria Heine, Valerie Stiles, Tyler Simons, Sam Truly, Julia Lloyd, Nate Lee, Megan Renault, Abby Parker, and in programs and engagement, Keelan Caldwell, Rachel Lake, Karina Halcomb, and Fondi Tran. Ladies and gentlemen, that's how many people it takes to do something awesome like this. But this is also what's possible. This is how we can make people's lives better. This is how we can make changes. Somebody else who's focused on making changes and making this neighborhood better is the City Council President, ladies and gentlemen, Councilor Ed Flynn.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. It's good to be here with the team from the Rose Kennedy Greenway, and also to my friend and colleague, Mayor Wu, and her team. Many city employees are doing a tremendous job working on this issue. And myself and the mayor got here early before the speaking program started, and we had the opportunity to talk to these young kids here, these students. They're Josiah Quincy students. And they were telling us about access to parks and what they want in this park, including swings and playgrounds. And I just want to say thank you to Chris Cook and the Greenway team for being a great neighbor to the residents of Chinatown in making sure this park will eventually be a beautiful, beautiful park. So I want to say thank you to Chris. But I couldn't stop thinking when I saw these kids. I probably come here 5-6 days a week, and we have the highest asthma rate right here in this neighborhood. And we have very few parks. We have very few green space. We don't have any trees. I have to wear this hat because I try to stay out of the sun. But we want to make sure that these young kids have the same access to open space, to parks, to playgrounds, to athletic programs as any other kid across the city. So I want to say thank you to the mayor's team for investing so much in this community, because these kids really deserve it. These families deserve it. Our seniors deserve it. And Boston is a welcoming city. We welcome our immigrant communities. And we're so proud of the Asian community here in Chinatown and the Chinese community for their tremendous sacrifice and service in making Boston a better place. So I'm honored to be here. I just want to say thank you to the dedicated city employees that are here, but especially to say thank you to the residents of Chinatown for working with us, not giving up hope, but working with us so we can improve this neighborhood, make it better for everybody, address quality of life issues. So I'm honored to represent this community. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Councilor. There's so many community leaders here, and Chinatown really is a community of people who are focused on making this neighborhood better. Here, representing two groups, actually, is Karen Chen, the Executive Director of the Chinese Progressive Association, but she's also a member of the Community Advisory Board for the city's heat plan. Please give her a warm welcome. Thank you.
Thank you， 大家好。咁首先呢，就好想多謝吳怡市長今日嚟同我哋講有關環境方面嘅問題，因為我哋知道咧喺我哋社區裏邊呢，即係話冇咁嘅機會可以講環境方面嘅問題，因為我哋社區實在有太多唔同嘅挑戰啦。So first, I want to thank the mayor, all the city staff, Council President Flynn, our city councilor, to be here. Within our community, we don't have a lot of opportunity to talk about the environment. So we're really grateful that the city and the city councils brought everyone here and the community together to talk about the environment. We have so many challenges in our community. Oftentimes, the environment actually is put in the back burner. So I'm so glad that we're here today to be celebrating Earth Day together in Boston's Chinatown. 咁因為今日係地球日啦，咁所以咧就係好多謝市政府嚟，咁亦都係俾一個機會咧，我哋社區裏邊咧亦都係多啲認識究竟環境咧對我哋嘅影響係乜嘢。咁可能或者我哋社區裏邊呢啲人都唔係好清楚咧，就係話我哋唐人街咧嗰個哮喘率咧係最高嘅，因為周圍有咁多個高速公路啦。咁仲有另外咧就係話呢啲廢氣方面咧，呢啲微細嘅廢氣咧，亦都係對我哋嘅心臟健康咧，亦都係有影響嘅，唔單止係我哋嘅呼吸系統嚇。咁仲有另外咧，就係話唐人街咧就係一個熱點，即係話咧，即係喺熱天嘅時候最熱嘅時候咧，唐人街嗰個温度咧係比其他地區咧係高啲嘅，起碼有10度咁多嘅。咁仲有另外咧嗰個熱氣咧流嘅時間咧係特別長嘅。咁所以呢個亦都係會同啲居民嗰個健康咧造成有好大嘅影響。嚇，咁仲有另外咧，就係仲有另外一個環境嘅影響咧，就係話我哋企喺呢度咧，唐人街咧，呢度係一個灣嚟嘅以前，所以好多唐人街嘅地咧都係填水嘅，咁所以亦都係即係話呢個水平上升咧，咁亦都係對我哋唐人街亦都係做嚟有好大嘅影響嘅。咁所以咧就係話我哋有咁多個問題啦。咁我知道社區咧一直都要組織保護唐人街嘅將來，咁我哋保護唐人街嘅將來必定咧要包括埋係環境方面嘅問題，咁所以咧就好高興咧，市政府有個計劃去保護唐人街個將來，咁包括咧係環境方面嘅問題。So we probably actually a lot of people in the community, don't really know that the asthma rate in Chinatown is so high. Also probably aren't aware that, the ultra-fine particle matters in our air also impacts our cardiovascular health. Or that Chinatown is a heat island. We're hotter than most other neighborhoods and heat stay longer. And also, the threat of rising sea level. Where we stand here, you see Beach Street actually used to be a beach. That's why it's Beach Street. So a lot of, Chinatown is actually landfill, used to be water. And so the rising sea level is also a threat. So I'm really, grateful that the city is coming up with a plan that actually includes protecting Chinatown's future, including, the environment, and actually put this more to the forefront so the resident can think about, as we are thinking about stabilizing Chinatown's housing stock, as we are talking about stabilizing working families, where does, environment fit into this whole, big picture? And I know that within the community, we're working on a microgrid, right, to address, heat issues. And we're going to be, at the State House with Mayor Wu to fight for low-income fare, because it's all part of really, protecting our neighborhoods. So I'm really grateful that we're here. And like the mayor said, we have a plan. Let's get to work.
Karen, thank you so much for those remarks, but also to your service to the community. And resilience is about a lot of things. Resilience is about making sure that we have a future for these kids, but it's also, oh, there goes the mayor's remark. I will recycle those in honor of Earth Day later. But, resilience is also about safety, and we have incredible safety partners here in the city of Boston, not the least of which is Chief Shemaine Benford and the extraordinary captain of A1, Bob Chicolo. So, Bob, thank you very much for being here today, Captain. Very grateful for that. Also in city leadership is a dear friend of mine, someone who has made climate action very personal to the neighborhoods of the city of Boston, and someone who I start most days with and sometimes end most days with as well, just seeking her advice on the best next steps, on how to connect people to this issue that is so important to us, this idea of how we're going to take care of our environment. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm welcome to the Greenway for Reverend Chief Mariama White-Hammond.
Thank you, Chris. You are so generous. What Chris doesn't tell you is when he first talked to me about taking this job, I said, I'm only going to do it if you are only a phone call away. And he has always been available anytime I needed advice. I also want to thank Mayor Wu for her leadership, for having us out here, and for catalyzing so much action in City Hall and around this community. To Council President Flynn, for your work, for your commitment. I never see Councillor Flynn without him asking me what we're going to make sure we do for Chinatown. So he is a tireless advocate for this community. And to Karen Chen, who we've known each other a little while. And when we were younger activists in this work, we're still very young, but I want to also say a thank you to this community, because over my lifetime, as I have seen much more solidarity work grow between communities of color across the city, Chinatown and the leadership of Chinese Progressive Association has been at the forefront of really helping people to see that we face some of the same challenges and we need to work together instead of pitting neighborhoods against each other. I also want to say a very special thank you to our chief partners. There's so many folks in the city who helped to make this heat plan come together. But I want to specifically give a shout out to the Boston Public Health Commission and Stacey Corcoran, who's here, and the Mayor's Office of Emergency Management and Chief Shue Binford. Both of those departments, have really lended their expertise and have played a critical role, not just in the development of this report, but really they are our key partners in moving forth on this task force. Because we don't want to issue a report without making sure there is robust follow-up. It's given us a pathway, but now we've got to walk on that together, and really thankful to walk that, both with the Health Commission and OEM. I also want to thank all of the advocates and community members who've guided these strategies. Many of you have come out to open houses. You've been willing to look at the data. Some of you participated in collecting data so that we could have a full picture, not just of the problem, but what is possible as we move forward together to create solutions. Chinatown played a particularly important role in that process, and is why this felt like the most appropriate place. Thank you. Do you have more feedback for me? The report's mostly done, but there's still opportunities to engage, so we'll keep listening. And I also want to take a quick, usually, you thank and we get noticed, those of us who have like fancy titles, but I do want to give a quick shout out to Zoe Davis and Sanjay Seth, who spent countless hours reviewing so many drafts of this because we really wanted to get it right. And so with all of those folks, I also want to take one moment to also thank for funding the state EEA through their MVP program, helped to fund the creation of the report, and the Barr Foundation, who funded the staff behind the report. As Mayor Wu mentioned, Boston can get pretty hot, and extreme heat is only being exacerbated by the growing impacts of climate change. This neighborhood in which we stand is literally the hottest neighborhood in Boston, during the day and even in the night. And we know that the heat impacts everyone, but it does not impact everyone equally. The reality is that many decisions have been made over the years about what neighborhoods had to deal with the burdens of highways, which neighborhoods would be paved over, which neighborhoods would constantly be asked to sacrifice their health for the greater good of the larger community who benefited. And so this plan is not just about recognizing what has passed, but really to moving forward and doing things differently in how we take action. And that is why we are so fortunate to have a Green New Deal mayor. Last week, Mayor Wu proposed a transformational budget that gets to the heart of climate resilience and will support the work to keep all Bostonians cool and safe. There are a few key investments that we want to mention as they connect directly with the heat plan. There's $2.5 million for a new climate-ready streets program to deliver on heat resilience, stormwater management, and air quality. We want to not just create streets and do one thing going with public works and another thing going with the tree teams and another thing going with transportation. We want to do the work all together. We want to build the kinds of streets that protect people and make them safe. That work is a deep partnership with the Streets Cabinet, which is another important partner who's been active in this heat plan. There's $20 million for a nation-leading pilot for energy retrofits in triple-deckers and other multifamily homes. And I live in Dorchester, the heart of triple-decker city. I myself live right in the middle of Dorchester's most the hottest heat island. And so this will be a real opportunity to help those of us who live in the housing that has characterized the nature of our neighborhoods, but really figure out how we incorporate more safety. And finally, $137 million to create and protect parks, our tree canopy, and open spaces in the city of Boston. These are all key tools. Nature is our best tool, both for limiting heat and increasing quality of life for all Boston residents. We are taking immediate action, and you've heard about this, the 30 pop-up cooling kits to community organizations. So if you're having a great event out there, reach out, let us know. We want to help you keep it cool. And the Cool Roofs program, which we hope Chinatown will be one of our core neighborhoods that really leans into that program. And the community-wide Cool Bus Stop Challenge, for which we want to thank the MBTA for being an active partner in helping us support our neighborhoods. Boston is ready to take on this climate challenge and to become a Green New Deal city. Today and every other day, I hope we will lean in to take collective action and to improve the health of our home and our planet. As Karen mentioned, there are often times where climate change and environmental issues goes low on the list of priorities in so many of our communities. We feel like we're battling so many things. Sometimes this gets lost. But I hope that on today, we will remember the important action of so many ancestors that went before us, who fought for our abilities to remain in our neighborhoods, who pushed back on racist and classist decisions that impacted many of our environmental justice communities. And I hope we who have been in this a while will also follow the leadership of young people who've really made this a central issue for our time. Happy Earth Day, everybody.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you very much, Reverend. And I also want to thank Vivian Lee's here. And the reason we have an amazing harbor walk is because of Vivian Lee. And a lot of other people. She'll always remind me of that. But thank you, Vivian. I also want to thank the Parks Commissioner, Ryan Woods, as well as the Environment Commissioner, Allison Brizius, for being here. Most importantly, I hope that you have a wonderful Earth Day. And as you think about this park that connects neighborhoods, think about your relationship with Earth and how you can reconnect with Earth. Now, that being said, if there's any questions on the topic of Earth Day, we're happy to answer them at the podium. If there's other questions, we can take them off to the side.
Talk about what we're doing to the Earth as opposed to what the Earth has given us and why we have to wake up in that respect as well.
Climate is the issue that is going to define the next 100 years in our country. It's what I think about raising 2 boys and counting every year that they grow up as another alarming milestone after another in terms of our warming planet and our rising sea levels. And so the very same steps that we need to take to create a world that is healthy and resilient, that we're proud to pass on to our kids, are the same steps to close gaps today in our city. And so this is really a win-win-win all around, and we're excited to show beyond Boston, across the country, just what happens when you can tap into the good jobs, the community, the health benefits that really come together when we focus on how interconnected all our issues are with climate at the center.
For the Boston Globe, so you talked about the cities that are being really impacted, or the areas being impacted, Chinatown, Dorchester, Roxbury, Mattapan, some of these communities that are really predominantly people of color, and the Reverend talked about what neighborhoods are being taken over. And so I was wondering if you could expand a little bit on the connection that we're seeing between climate and race and some of that intersectionality.
It has always been our environmental justice communities that have contributed the least to climate change and the risks that we face now, but who have been impacted the most. Whether it's environmental hazards and the burdens of waste management stations, or highway infrastructure that brings pollution into communities, or jet fuel that is spread across playgrounds in East Boston, we know that the very communities who have been absorbing the brunt of the impacts from the pandemic long before COVID-19 have already been fighting, advocating, and presenting solutions for how we move forward. And so I'll pass it over to our chief to see if she would like to add anything else on particularly these neighborhoods and communities. But I know in every issue that we're thinking about, it is how we connect all of the urgent challenges our residents and families have been facing since long before the pandemic.
So I'll just add that one actually key part of the report is that it looks at the relationship between historical redlining trends in our neighborhoods and where our hottest areas are. And you unfortunately would probably not be surprised to know there is a lot of overlap between communities that we disinvested in, where there wasn't energy put into parks or green space, where the kinds of development choices that were made because they figured, well, these are low-income people, or these are folks that we're not going to give the highest quality to. So the report actually really does look at that, and it's unfortunate that that's actually a nationwide trend. I think what's exciting about what we're hoping to do here is to say, in the same way that some folks bore a disproportionate amount of the brunt, those same communities should now get a disproportionate investment in reversing those negative trends.
Looking at the report, it looks like some of the next steps include things like tree planting, paving the streets in the front page, are there any other things that
Yeah, so I think what I would say at the foundation of it is this notion that to mitigate these impacts, it really can't be just one department paying attention to this. And one of the things that's exciting is that in this report, so many different departments sat at the table. Now what we need to do is figure out, how do we take what we know to impact policy? Because in the past, I don't want to call it, there are definitely departments that have done what they would, focusing, for instance, on transit, or focusing, for instance, on health policy, but not always necessarily having that extra layer of how are the decisions that we're making also impacting heat. And so what I think is exciting is because folks have been at the table since the beginning, now we have the opportunity to take it and look at the policies across the city that may not have been heat related, but they have heat impacts to them. So actually the Climate Ready Streets is a perfect example of that. Really looking at what kinds of paving materials are we using? Can we be looking at, if we're going to do an overall of our streets, sometimes in the past they've been done in a way that doesn't make it that easy to plant trees. So we're asking things like, how are we putting, making sure that there's enough soil left after we do street work so that we can still plant trees. And what's exciting is there's been no department that says, you know, get out of the way, we're just going to keep doing things the way we've been doing. As people have sat at the table and looked at the impacts of those choices, we're glad that so many are ready to be partners in looking at decisions that maybe we never thought about before from their heat impact, but I hope we can look at them differently now.
Thank you. So, folks, we're going to end it there, but happy Earth Day. Before you leave, you can be the change. You can actually change what this park looks like. We're running a design process for Mary Suhu Park right now. We're trying to think about different enhancements that can make that park better. Do not leave without going over to the Rose Kennedy Greenway table and taking the survey to see the change so we can make sure we have a beautiful space for these kids. Ladies and gentlemen, happy Earth Day. Thank you.
By the way, are those